Hello, everyone. Welcome back to episode 6 of What's Spinnin'.
Episode 6?
Episode 6.
All pros here now.
I know. I had to look at the board, though, to make sure. Yeah, and you've got the old faithful, me, Brett, and Mitch Hall joining us here. And this week, we have the wonderful Techno Tim Stewart joining us. He's a software engineer, content creator, and home lab enthusiast, and just generally...
We're all great guys.
Just a great guy. Yeah, he beat me to it. So without further ado, Tim, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's
happy
awesome.
Happy to. As usual, you're just aesthetically pleasing as all hell. Look at that background. It's just beautiful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, my background. All right.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
of course, you as well, sir. I mean, that goes without saying.
We were going to build to that. We didn't want to. We didn't want to throw that out first clip. Yeah. But yeah, no. Thanks for.
Thank you. Yeah. Great to be here. Thanks for having me. Excited to be on.
Cool.
Good to see you guys again. It's been a while.
It's been a couple months for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So we'll dive into it. Before we get in onto the fun stuff, we like to start this with our guests. So just a little bit of an origin story, right? Who is Tim? How did you get into your life as a software developer? You've done a lot of cool things. You've worked in a lot of different places, and you are quite the content creator. Like Mitch said, you've got some of the best just general aesthetics of how everything works and flows. I think that kind of plays into being a JavaScript developer and front end and everything like that. But I wanted to ask you, how'd you get into this world? What got you started as a software dev? And then when did the content creation idea start? Was that kind of an accident, or was that part of the big grand plan?
Yeah, all great questions. Origin stories. All right. So how did I get started? I originally started out in tech support. So I when I got out of college, I started in tech support, which was awesome. Like it was, I wouldn't have started my career any other way. Because I got to fix things for people. I got to learn a lot about technology, a lot about infrastructure, but also a lot about customer service and how to talk to people about technology they don't really understand. So that was a huge for me. Like, I'm so glad that I started out in a tech support role. And while some of it was remote, a lot of it was face-to-face. It was at a hospital. So I was helping people with technology who were at their wits' end, who were trying to help people who are not doing too well. So it was a great learning experience. Yeah, and then from there, I did a little bit of everything. I racked some servers for a little bit at that hospital. Got into some networking administration, learned some Cisco stuff, and then just went off from there.
Just kept snowballing.
The network. Yeah. I kept. I was hungry to learn more. As you know, after I learned stuff about PCs, I wanted to know about servers. After I learned stuff about servers, I wanted to know about networking. After that, I wanted to learn about managing large, corporations with Active Directory or any kind of management tools you want. And then I ended up working for a large company here in Minnesota. In Minneapolis, they make cereal. I won't say who they are, but large company. And there I learned all about like large corporate networks and how to do things. And and then I got really specialized in which was awesome. But at the same time, then I started to realize like I kind of miss doing a lot of different things. Mm-hmm. Anyways, long story short, I got into software development shortly after that. How did it happen? I was developing apps outside of work. So I'm a huge fan of Aurora Borealis. I've only seen it a few times. Once I moved to Minnesota, I was like, yes, I finally get a chance to see it. And that day when it was going to happen, I realized there aren't any great apps to do this. You know, I had bookmarked like 15 websites, signed up for alerts and all this stuff. And so that kind of motivated me to learn how to develop an app. So I did that and was doing that for a while. And then my manager at the time said, hey, I got a spot open. I know you're not, trained in software development, but I know you build apps and I know you're a good person. Want to join my team? And it was like the best possible situation ever.
Okay. Awesome.
Because I got to, and then, I don't,
keep going.
No, and then I just developed apps. I work for startups. I still kind of work for a startup and do a lot of Kubernetes, a lot of infrastructure, a lot of software development. So I'm back like jack of all trades, but more on the code and infrastructure side. Yeah, and I do love front end. It's weird combination, DevOps plus front end. It's like something that
it's the unicorn.
It's a
full stack guy, right? But no, but it's kind of answered a question there that I also had, but I'd love to hear a little bit about this. So it sounds like to me that we've got another person similar to Jeff last week that you're not classically trained. You kind of just like kept snowballing, self-learning, getting deeper and deeper into the weeds, and essentially found yourself being like a full-time developer. Is that the case?
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, I studied a little bit of computer science in college. I don't have a degree in computer science. I actually have a degree in Japanese. I speak Japanese.
Oh, wow.
So my grandmother's Japanese. Yeah, my grandmother's Japanese. My dad was born in Japan, and so I speak Japanese, and that's what I studied in school. And I thought I was going to go to Japan and teach English, but then things changed, and I kind of fell back on my hobbies, and my hobbies have really. I mean, my origin story is me always trying to do my hobbies and it working out for me, from tinkering with computers, it turned into tech support, to building mobile apps on the side, it turned into software development, job, to building a home lab at home, turned into infrastructure job, and that's so, cool. And now content creation, and it's kind of my thing now. So I've always, not knowingly, and I think I just had an epiphany right now, but I've turned my hobbies into careers at some point in time in my life, and it's kind of great.
That's awesome.
It's the lucky people that get to do that, right? Is take your passions.
It's an interesting one though, because on the more cynical view of it, like you've heard before, is like you turn your hobby into your job, and then all of a sudden you've lost your hobby and you've made it, and you
it's not fun anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's not fun anymore, and you do a really good job of keeping the fun of it, because you can tell, like, just when you talk to you, you're like, yeah, Tim's having a good time. Yeah. I don't know, take us through that a little bit. How you
keep it fresh,
and keep moving and everything like that. Not let your hobbies turn from the fun work to the work that you're kind of forced to do.
And I think because there's so many of them too, maybe, Tim.
It is, yeah. So diversity is one big one where I, try to dabble in a lot of stuff. My channel isn't only software or only systems or only network or only home lab. It's a combination of a few. Although the algorithm doesn't always like me all the time when I bounce around like that, I don't mind, because it's what I'm doing. That's kind of how my channel started. It was what am I doing this weekend? And I want to document it in a video. And it's still that. It's still that to this day. It's, hey, if you want to know what I did last week, look at my last video. That's what I was working on. So, but it is tough when you start to mix, business and your hobbies. It's like, you feel like you're always working or you're always playing, and it's great when you feel like you're always playing. But when it shifts back the other way, you can get into a lull, or you're like, I feel like, that I'm always working. So,
but you nailed it with the diversity. because that's it. Like, because that's life, man. It can't all be sunshine and roses all the time. You need to feel the lows to enjoy the highs and everything like that. So, but I think diversity. Like, go and like, I'm stuck. I want to go do something else,
try something
and set
else.
yourself up to do that way. Yeah, that's good insight.
It's funny. He mentioned how his videos were like what he's working on at this time or what he's doing right now. Speaking of that, kind of, we went back to your oldest videos, some of your older videos, and we saw and noticed like it all kind of just started off playing games, right? Like live streaming yourself, gaming. And then there was like just a point where eventually it just made this switch, and then the views also just like kind of took off as well. So were you originally essentially just like, hey, I want to try this Twitch streaming stuff or live streaming a game, or is it just like, hey, I like playing games, I'm going to throw my stuff up on YouTube?
That's exactly it. I feel like I want to hide those videos because the old ones are so bad. Not that the newer ones are any better, and it's nice to look back at them. But man, like some people think I'm like an AI robot back then, and I'm like, yeah, kind of looks like it, like glitching all the time and like looking at the camera. I'm super scared, but you nailed it. Like, yeah, I got into live streaming with Twitch way before YouTube. So I was a live streamer before I did long form content on YouTube, and I was really into playing games. I really like playing a lot of indie games, a lot of, games you'd find on Steam that aren't your classic, AAA games. And
For sure.
I love platformers, and I love playing them. So I thought, hey, Twitch is pretty cool. It might take off. I'll do this. And it was a way to turn my hobbies. It was a way to kind of do two things at once, play a game, interact with people.
Yeah.
That didn't go so well after a while. Like it went fine. Like it totally went fine. And it kind of prepped me for like how to interact with people, even though there wasn't a lot of people on my channel. It still gave me like a good baseline or a foundation of like, how do I operate a stream? How do I get my audio right? Although I still struggle with the audio to this day. It taught me a lot.
Producer just put his hand
But then then I got to a point where I was like, hey, I love doing home lab stuff. At the time, it was me in the basement messing around, networking or tearing up PCs or building this monstrosity of a server. And I realized like now I'm playing games and streaming, and it's taking up so much time, and now I can't do those other things. So I used to go on hiatus. I would take a month off from streaming and like do all of this networking stuff and all this cool stuff. And then I would come back and I thought, this really isn't working out. I'm just going to start like recording what I do on the weekends, and Jeff from Craft Computing was a huge inspiration to me at the time, because he was doing a lot of the things that I wanted to do. And he was using a lot of the systems I wanted to use. Very early on, I asked him questions on Twitter, and I thought, this he's big time. He'll never get back to me. He responded to me right away,
Yep.
And from there, I just was like, okay, I'm going to shift gears. I'm going to turn my hobby into something I can do. And, my hobby is now, it's hobby plus, home lab plus content creation. And I mix the two together. I've always had to mix two things together. Otherwise I don't know, for some reason I can't do one thing at once. It's home lab plus content creation, or it's coding plus content creation. For some reason, and if I get three, like when I do something about programming plus gaming plus content creation, it's like, whoa, I'm like in the flow state because it's like there's like three things that I love all in one. And so whenever I combine, about three of those things together, two of those things, it just gets really fun for me.
No, I really understand that, because it almost gives you the goal of like, why am I even doing this, right? Like if you're doing home lab and then for content creation, well, what's my goal? Well, I want to do all this work, then I want to show it off.
Yeah.
And then if you just do one, it's almost like how many people have tried to be like, I'm going to learn a new programming language. And then you start the tutorials, or you have no project in mind. Oh, yeah. And then you just, you, without that goalpost or something to like, I'm doing this so I can deliver this, so I can solve someone's problems, or I can create something, or that's really what gives you that fire to keep going, I think.
Yeah, I agree, for sure.
Yeah. What I always recommend that to people, because a lot of my content is tutorials too. But I always recommend that to people, like, have a goal. Like instead of doing a simple Hello World app, if you like gaming, how about it's Hello Gaming World or Hello whatever. If you like Discord, write a bot on Discord, so you can actually use it in your Discord channel, which is super fun to do. And so while Hello World tutorials are great, I always say, sprinkle on something that you like into it so you get something out of it at the end of the day. And it keeps you motivated too.
Exactly.
Without a doubt, I can vouch for that. And anyone else that's like wanting to learn a new language or even something in the tech world, home labbing, related to something that you want, something that you think would be really, really cool to have. And it's going to just up the motivation factor so much higher, and it'll see you through, right? You do some of the tutorials, it's just like, it's so boring, right? It's you want to do it for fun.
So that leads me to my question. You do some really good tutorials. I've watched quite a few of them. A lot of the Kubernetes stuff is awesome. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of Kubernetes, and every time it's just she's a bit of a brain pretzel, right? But it's awesome. My question for you right now is, of all your tutorials, of all your videos, which one can you put a bow on and be like, yeah, that's the best one I did. I'm proud of that one. Is there any that stick out to you?
Tough. That's tough. There are a couple for different reasons. I would have to say though that the one that I didn't think was like that until now is my first 11 things in Proxmox video. It's something like that. It's basically everything you do after all the tutorials stop, right? Mm-hmm. And so there's lots of tutorials on how to install Proxmox, how to virtualize stuff, but a lot of them in there. And so this was kind of my part 2 of like, hey, what do you do after that? What are the most common things I do? And a lot of that is hey, okay, let's set up VLANs, let's set up lag on my NIC, let's set up email alerts, like let's operationalize this thing and make it, usable. And that's something that I had no idea. I think that's my number 1 video now. And so that's something I don't know. It kind of took off. It was a surprise to me. But I kind of like being that part 2 to stuff, right? Where a lot of my stuff still is some 101 stuff. Like if you're in the ecosystem or you're kind of in the home lab community, a lot of the stuff I do is going to be 101 stuff. Mm-hmm. I kind of like the 201 stuff a little bit too, to get people to kind of think like beyond like, okay, what can I do with this or what can I do next?
Yeah, I set it up. That's what do I do now?
Yeah,
exactly. So that's kind of like where I like picking up. And but then it excludes some people because they might not know. It's a tough balance of when to do that. But I enjoy that one. Looking back on it, I just look at it like, man, I was so young and so fresh. It seems like forever ago, but it was only like 2 years ago, I think. But that's one. And then there are others like I have a lot of Docker videos, and I have a lot of Docker, a lot of Kubernetes stuff. I know that Kubernetes is it's its own beast. I love it because I know how prevalent it is and how powerful it is. But it's a lot to grok. But I did a Docker one on how to build your own Docker container. I don't know. I'm super proud of that, only because the transition from an intro to a tutorial I did, and that's always hard. It's I don't know. Once you start doing content stuff, it's like, how do I transition from the intro to the thing I really want to do?
Yeah,
and so that one, I think it was like so seamless to where people are like, oh, I'm 2 minutes in, they're like, oh, this is a tutorial, because it was still kind of entertaining at the same time. But yeah, I know. But well, I mean, it's a good trick, but I know what you mean. It is. Yeah. I think people expected it, because it's like, how do I build my own custom container, but really I have to go from, hey, what is Docker, all the way to building your own custom Docker container. And that's a big bridge to gap sometimes in a tutorial in about 45 seconds.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
But that's exactly the kind of answer I was looking for. It's like, the topics are interesting and stuff, but it's when you've made enough videos, you're just like, I love the way I said that.
Yeah.
Or the way I went from this to this. I don't know if anyone will notice. And then every once in a while you get one comment or someone, or you squeak in a joke or like a reference, and someone's like, oh, I get it. And you're like, yes.
Yeah. I can put my hand up for a video of yours that we could say is our favorite. I think I pumped your tires on this once before on a call, but this is legitimately a true story. So we partnered with one of the largest computing companies in the world for a project, and one of our developers, I'll name drop him, Dawson, was working out a way to essentially we were building multi-tenancy through Proxmox for a back-end use case that we have. We were trying to figure out the best way to do it, and the thing that sparked what ended up being the project was I thought it was your Terraform video, but it wasn't. It was your Cloud Init video that you did. So he watched that and like essentially used that as the whole basis of what ended up being that project, which is a massive project. We went actually to London, England earlier this year to play a cluster for them. So thank you for that. And that was an example of some amazing content for us.
And it just goes to show.
Thank you. Awesome. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I'm glad you found it useful. I like that one too. I knew nothing about Cloud Init. That's the other thing too. A lot of the times I go into these not knowing anything about it, so I kind of have to learn it and then teach it. But yeah, glad you liked it. Tell Dustin I said hi too.
I will. For
sure.
He's probably watching outside right now.
All right.
Yeah, no, that's great. That is almost the kind of one of the better parts of making a video too. Is that feeling of learning something. I know this. Mm-hmm. You put it together, then you make the video on it, and you walk out of it. It's like, now I really know this. Yeah. Like, there's nothing better than teaching someone to learn it better yourself.
That's how you find out if you really know it or not, is if you go to teach it.
Yeah, it's tough, though. Tech YouTube is tough because, I'm sure other types of YouTube are any kind of how-tos. Basically, instructional type stuff is tough because it's like, whenever you plan content, it's like you have this project in mind. Well, you have to see if it's feasible, figure it out, figure out all the edge cases, where are the, landmines at, and then, kind of do it ahead of time. And then you actually are like, okay, now I think I can do this. Let's, put a script around it, create content around it, and then do it in the video. So I feel like I'm doing things 2-3 times every time I record a video, at least. It's tough, but you guys get it. You guys get it.
Oh, absolutely.
But then there are other times where I'm just like, I'm turning on the camera and I'm winging this whole thing. That's how I used to. That was my first year of YouTube. Wing it all.
Yeah.
Wing it all. No script, no teleprompter. Just go for it. And I still have videos like that. Hopefully you can't tell which ones, but I enjoy those too because it's more like this. It's more natural.
Yeah. I always like the natural ones too, but we also had the added benefit of Chris McGean, our wonderful producer, videographer, and everything under the sun. I'll just riff some things out, and I go, Chris, you can fix that after, right? And he's like, yeah, sure.
You can cut
I didn't have to do my own editing, so it was way easier.
Yeah. Fix it in post, right? Yeah.
Fix it in post, yeah.
Of course.
And then, yeah.
And then also with the tutorials too, another difficult part of it is literally you get the people like myself, guilty as charged, who will watch a video where like, I already know how to do this. I'm going to watch the video anyway. And then you got the people comment and be like, well, no, actually you did this command, or you could have did this one instead. Yeah. I'm not guilty of that part. Just saying.
Yeah. I get that too. Or like, hey, this is great except for this one piece. And I don't know. An old manager told me a long time ago that like feedback is a gift, and so I've taken that to heart ever since he told me that. And so I got to take the good and the bad. And a comment is a comment. It helps the algorithm. So exactly. I don't mind it because I've worked with a lot of developers, a lot of people in IT who are super particular, pedantic. So I get it, and I enjoy it. Yeah. They felt motivated enough to say something, and even if that something was like, I hate it, it's like, okay, that's your opinion,
for watching.
And that's fine.
Yeah. Which made me think as soon as you said that, because like front end design, you're very good at it because everything I've seen you create and with your name on it, it's just that, like Mitch said at the beginning, that kind of aesthetic prettiness. But that's so hard of the front end design, especially that mix of creativeness with the kind of technical
skills,
bolts and nuts that you have to know. Like, I personally hate CSS. Thank God I've got people working for us that handle all that and everything like that. But I guess I'm guessing, tell us a little bit about that mix of like the technological, what you can do, but then the creative bits of it, and I don't know, the back and forth with people. Like, what appeals to you about it? Must appeal to you because you're so good at it.
The front end.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So I got involved in front end a while ago because one, no one wanted to do it, and two, I thought it was like awesome. Like no one wanted to do it, and I thought, okay, challenge accepted. Let's figure this thing out. And that was a long time ago. But what I liked most about it was like more user experience. So like, when you think about design is, kind of how it looks. User experience is more like how you operate the thing. And so my goal, as being a front end developer for a long time was to, one, try to make something look pretty. 2, partner with a designer, because I'm not a designer myself, but I've done enough UIs now to where I kind of get the general flow.
Sure.
And 3, make it super easy to use, and I got into front end because I wanted to make things usable. I wanted to help build UIs that people looked at and not only said like, hey, that looks good, but also, hey, that was easy to use, or hey, that was surprisingly fun. Those little aha or those little moments at the end where someone does something, and they're rewarded with an animation or something like that. Something like things like that I really enjoy. Now, but I can crank out like front ends, just old, I don't want to say old school, but forms over data. Like you have a lot of business forms, need a lot of data. You have a database. I'm totally fine with doing that too. But I really enjoy, mobile apps is where it really, really comes to life, is because there's just so much you could do with mobile apps as far as animation and looks and colors and motion. So I really enjoy that. I don't know. And then like a lot of this stuff I feel like is, I don't want to say hack, but I'm just like, hey, let's put some LEDs back there, and then I put more, and then I put more, and then I put more. So I'm totally guilty of overdoing some things sometimes. And so I think if you can make something look simple, that's complicated, I think that's a win. And this looks complicated, and it is complicated. So this is not a win, but then again, it's like, I'm live streaming about technical stuff, so I gotta kind of spice it up.
No, I know it sounds like we're literally pumping our tires, but this is true. Like you have the eye for the aesthetic. Like even looking at your rack and your Instagram posts, like it just all look like your patch panels. Everything just looks meticulous.
Looks disgusting.
Exactly. I have a rack. I have a few servers in it. I do not have an eye for the aesthetic. I'm more of a function over form, don't really care kind of guy, but I've been in this world long enough to realize like you really have like these different types of people where someone's really good at the back end, has a great mind for it, or you have people that are great communicators, right? They may not have this huge technical depth, but they can communicate things really, really well to other people. And then, like we said, people with the aesthetics, and it is really such a rare thing to have all of that. And so, congratulations.
I appreciate it. My back end code though is okay though. So
that's all right. You can hide it.
Yeah, exactly.
You can hide that.
You can hide it.
But I do want to talk.
Right. I just prettied it up.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about, since we were talking about iOS app, or sorry, just phone apps in general, mobile apps, the space weather app you build and maintain. That's like cool. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Is that all you
space weather? Like I assume is that what you were talking about at the beginning about an app for like
it was. Yeah, it is, and it's. I'll be honest. Like I haven't touched it in a long time, but it's still out there, still in the App Store. You could still get it. It was a hobby. It's still a hobby. I do it for fun. And it's actually all self-hosted. It's in my Kubernetes cluster. It's running in my home.
That is
so
cool.
If you launch that service, you are inside of my home. Kind of, sort of. There's some proxies and stuff built in, but anyways,
kind of, sort of. Yeah.
It's safe.
Yeah, kind of, sort of. Yeah, I don't want to give anybody
any ideas.
Okay, we'll cut that out later. No, but yeah, so that app, it was exactly that. I went up north. So I just moved to Minnesota. Went up north. There was an aurora that night. There was nothing out there to help me find it. So I was inspired that night after seeing the aurora to start sketching stuff, and I went home and I actually built it.
That's awesome.
I actually built it for Windows Phone at first. This is kind of, I don't know if it's pigeonholing me or dating me or both, but I did it all in .NET. It was on Windows Phone, and then you know how that turned out. And then so then I converted it over, and I do it in React Native now, which is not that important, but it's on Android and iOS. And I wrote the front end, wrote the back end, I write all the jobs, and really what it's doing is going out to NOAA, which is the our Oceanic and Atmospheric Association.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So NOAA has been dumping stats to a text file since I think, 80s or something. So very early. So they dump all these stats to text files. And so I go and basically collect all those text files with a runner that runs in Kubernetes. I'll tell you how the whole thing works.
Sure,
Kubernetes job kicks off. every 5 or 10 minutes, goes and scrapes all those text files, stores it in a database. It's all running in a Mongo database. I thought about Postgres, but it's running Mongo. Then I have APIs that serve out the data. And then I wrote the client that runs in Android and iOS. And everyone who runs that app connects to my API, and then it connects to the database, and that's it. Yeah. Send out push notifications. And yeah. So anyways, long story short, it helps you know if there's going to be an aurora. So, when there's a solar flare from the sun, or a CME, coronal mass ejection is what it's called.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. It spins off this stuff full of plasma, shoots towards the Earth. The Earth has an iron core, which creates a magnetic field. When those electrons go back and get squished, they shoot back and light up, and that's how we see an aurora. So this just tracks that. It just tracks, those numbers from NOAA, and we'll let you know how likely you are to see one. So
Very cool.
Very, very cool.
I've been in Canada my whole life, and I've never actually seen them.
Nope,
have you?
Neither have I.
No?
I don't
Someday.
think we can see them.
Not here in
from where
Nova
we're at.
Scotia. Yeah, like I've been in Alberta a lot, and I still haven't seen them, but someday.
Cool.
Northwest
I saw
Territories.
northern Minnesota here.
Oh, wow.
And then was I in Ontario once? And I don't remember. I drove way north of Ontario because Toronto is so bright. But
You would have been in
because I
Ontario.
lived in Toronto for a little bit. Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Up in
Nice.
the Canadian Shield there. Just nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
No light pollution.
So, yeah,
That's
you were
right. Yeah.
when you were living in Toronto, were you move up for work?
Yeah. It was for work. A company I worked for also has a location in Mississauga.
Yep.
And
nice.
I worked in Mississauga, but lived in Toronto. So I did a reverse commute every day, which was awesome. Because if you go the other way, it's like you're an hour in traffic. So, but yeah, I lived right behind the Blue Jays Stadium, Wellington or something. It was kind of fancy. I think the Wellington Street, I don't know, but right behind the Jays Stadium, which was awesome. And then, lived in Toronto and commuted into Mississauga and just did a little expat stint for about six, 7 months. It was awesome. It was awesome. Got to see a lot of Canada. I traveled too. I love Banff. I love Alberta.
Banff
I love
is
Calgary.
beautiful,
Banff is still my favorite place on earth. Been there 3 times. I love it. Lake Louise, actually, but that area.
Louise,
Just the Canadian Rockies are so awesome.
Heck yeah. We got somebody jumping in the comment section asking when your tutorial for Ceph is coming. I saw Zachary Solis had it. It must have already passed.
Before you start, we can do the your model of lining up 1 or 2 things, and you can learn Ceph Rook and jam it in with Kubernetes.
With Kubernetes, since Kubernetes.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right. Yeah. It would have been sooner. I just, for Ceph, you need 3 nodes. That's kind of hard to come by. I could do it in virtual machines. Still a little bit kind of hard to come by and to set up. Unless I do Ceph bare metal. So exactly, virtualized Ceph without Proxmox or anything, but on say Ubuntu or Rocket or something like that. But I need 3 machines, and I had 3 mini machines, but now those are dedicated to Kubernetes. So I need to probably come up with 3 more mini machines so I can do it. I definitely want to do it. It's one of those things that's like it. it takes hardware for this. I mean, it takes hardware for it to really see the benefit.
Yep.
I can do it in a virtualized environment. That's tough. But yeah, you're right. After Ceph, then I could use Rook, which is a storage provider for Kubernetes, which would then give me, HA storage inside of Kubernetes. Yeah.
That is an interesting topic. The need of Ceph Rook and why tuck that into Kubernetes when Kubernetes can consume Ceph that's not
Natively
Kubernetes.
anyway,
Anyway, Rook's still in active development.
Yep,
there.
it is.
Yeah.
I remember we were at the Cephaloncon in Amsterdam. Was it this year?
It was this year. It was February.
So we were there and we were at the panel, and the guy that heads up the documentation project for Ceph was on stage, and someone asked the question if he has any plans to update the Kubernetes documentation. That was the question.
Yeah, the Rook documentation.
The Rook documentation. Yeah. And he was like, sure, we could do that. And then he goes, just by show of hands, anyone here actually use that? There's like three
There's
hands
like 3
go
hands,
up
yeah.
in a whole stadium full of people, and he's like, "Yeah, that's what I thought."
Yeah.
He's like, but I'll do it.
Yeah. You're on the list.
You're on the
Goes
list, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I haven't dabbled in Ceph or Rook yet. I've been using Longhorn for a while, and that's they take a little bit different approach where they basically use unused drive space on Kubernetes nodes, which is pretty cool and novel idea because most Kubernetes nodes aren't using any disk space at all. You know, it's mostly just memory and compute.
Exactly.
So. But and then so it's like it makes it a little bit easier because I have Kubernetes nodes and I don't need to do anything different. But I'm definitely, I'd love to. Yeah, I need to get a hold of three small nodes at some point so I can do it.
We might know a guy.
It's on the list. I tell everyone it's on the list.
Yeah, no, it's just a fun fact of home lab, tech, IT at all. Like, there's a million different ways to skin the cat, right?
Oh, yeah.
And whatever fits for you and your home lab and interesting like that. So, cool.
I definitely want to do it. I want to learn it. I told you guys there when I was there too, and you guys offered up the training. It was just bad timing too. So I definitely want to do it because I wanted to take the training when I had a little bit of knowledge and had the hardware to actually do it. So
Heck yeah, we will be here with any help that we may provide.
Yeah, because I'll just a little peek at the home lab product line and roadmap and stuff like that. Like the HL15's out. I see yours sitting behind you there. That's wonderful.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we have there's more coming with that.
Yeah.
There's a compute pairs well with the HL15 thin client, thick NUC style coming very soon. And then after that, we're doing small mini ones. We're doing a 4-bay and 8-bay. And we're also looking at like low power options and how to get enough storage, but in a small form factor that would work well in the home lab. So that loose timelines on all that. The thin client, the NUC like computer is coming first. But that's where the home line's going.
Are we still hoping
Home
to get
line.
in for Christmas? Home lab. Get it in for Christmas? Is that
If
still
supply lines work out, that's the plan. But we'll see.
Yep.
We'll see.
wow, you guys are really far along then. I like this. I like this by Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
It's almost Christmas. I know.
Yeah. We
December,
hope
like
to have it up
2
on the
days.
store.
Yeah.
So really the idea
That is
behind
awesome.
it is just literally it's a single board computer to pair really, really well with the HL15. Maybe you're running Plex on it. Maybe you have a media server on it. Well, this can sit on your entertainment center if you want and kind of have Ubuntu running on it or any Linux distro, Nix OS or Pop OS, something nice and clean for the home environment or for the TV environment, something like that. And then you can have your file shares, all kinds of stuff like that. Just a nice, fairly powerful, thin client. Yep.
Anyway, so that's a bit of a sneak peek at what's coming, and anyway, we'll keep everyone updated there too.
With the aesthetics of the HL15. 'Cause
Yes.
aesthetics seems to be the topic of today.
Yeah, which I'm a huge fan of this one. Like, that has Star Wars like Hoth written all over it when I see it. Every time I see it on, just reminds me of the Frozen Planet in Star Wars. Yep.
Yeah,
I love it.
Speaking of Star Wars, you play Jedi Survivor yet this year?
No.
Good game.
That's the thing is like I swung way too far on the home lab side where I haven't been able to play any games, and I feel like I need to start streaming games on Twitch again so I can actually play games.
I was actually
can
going to
get
say
2
that.
for 1 again, but
You've got the community now, man. Everyone probably might like that, right? Hang out some Friday night, just chatting shop and playing video games, right?
yeah, for sure. I've talked about it in our Discord community a few times, and there was some interest, but I don't want to force it on anyone. But yeah, I'd love a community game night sometime, just to hang out and play games.
Yeah, we keep talking about doing a Counter-Strike
I have a
tournament.
meeting.
Yeah, we were going to do a Counter-Strike night here in the office with all of our service department, anyone else that wants to take part, but we haven't pulled the trigger yet.
Yeah, and to Amateur Wizard, this is actually live.
Yes, it is.
Just want to answer.
Do we need to hold up a sign with the current date on it?
Yeah, we're here. Yeah.
Quick question before we hop, because we have a couple things we still want to ask you, but someone asked, the HL15 video is solid and it seems like a great NAS setup. I was concerned it may not be a good candidate for a main Proxmox box with your review. Limited number of VMs possible. Yeah, 100%. If you're going with the 6-core, the fully built offering, I mean, if you want to put Proxmox on it and you have a couple low-power VMs, have at it. It'll do that all day. That being said, through the Houston UI, there is a virtual machine module as well, which is obviously not built for large scale VM deployment. But if you have 1 or 2 VMs you need to run on it, that module in Houston will give you everything you need. But yeah, absolutely. If you want to go run a ton of VMs on that thing, you should go pick up a higher core count CPU.
And I'll jump in on that too. And that's why we offer the Home Lab product in the fully built option.
Exactly.
But we have the chassis one as well if you want to put your own guts into it.
Yep,
but remember, the full build option is got a Supermicro Enterprise motherboard in there. It has the socket that can support many more cores. So you can get the full build and then just replace the heatsink in a CPU and build on there. Because remember, the Home Lab thing really is built to be a bit of a platform. It gets the job done with what it is. Mitch, little spoiler alert, you almost have 20 gigabits flowing out of that 6-core CPU.
Yep.
But still give everyone the ability to be like, yeah, I want to swap some things out. So
Yeah, actually, to that point, we were talking before that a little bit. So I just shot a video. If anyone has saw our Performance 1.0 video Doug and I shot, we showed off 10 gigabits going through this thing. In this case, I set up SMB multi-channel, so 2 10 gigabit connections. And this is real data, right? We're talking like actual data flowing from disks over Samba to a Windows machine. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but there was quite a bit left on the table. And that video will be coming out soon. And anyone that might have a HL15 that wants to kind of join in on this little thing that we're going to do, I'm going to throw down the gauntlet and we're going to see if anyone can beat my speeds. All you need is 15 hard drives because that's the common denominator. You can have whatever CPU you want. And anyway, we'll talk about more, but I'm really excited about this one. It's going to be fun.
that reminds me, Tim, you posted a picture a week or two ago. I don't know. Time bleeds around here. Of what was it, B-Top and that beautiful network thing.
Back to the aesthetics. This man, like,
Jeez,
I've never used B-Top, and I look at that thing. I'm like, damn, I thought H-Top was nice, and I'm looking at it. I'm like, that thing's beautiful. Someone's like, it looks like a Chicago skyline, and it actually does.
Yeah, it did.
That's a great tool,
man.
It did,
yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome. I only discovered it recently too because I saw it in someone else's screenshot and I was like,
nice.
What is that? No, someone in my Discord was talking about it. I'm like, what is this beautiful like ASCII chart thing? I love ASCII like charts and stuff like that.
Yeah. What do they call it?
But yeah,
it's text user interfaces, I guess.
That's
cool.
right.
Yeah.
That is right. And it's pretty awesome. It's cool. You can cycle through them too and see everything. And that's what I used to test the HL15 when I got 20 gigabits flowing through it. Mine wasn't
memory to memory. Yep.
That's right.
It's still iPerf.
Mine was just iPerf 3. Yeah, iPerf 3, 32 threads. I really pumped it up to get up there, and it handled it fine. I got 18.1 gigabits without zero tuning. Tuning. I did nothing other than launch iPerf 3. On my Mac, my Windows machine, and then 2 instances on the HL15. It worked right away. So I was like, this is awesome.
Yep.
Well, that was we came out and wanted to show 1 gig speeds, and then we saw that, and we were like, all right, well, there's more here, Mitch. Turn it up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Crank her up to 11.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested. I know next to nothing about, did you say multipass?
So SMB multi-channel, it's pretty interesting. If you've ever used iSCSI, like multipath iSCSI, it's very similar to that. Essentially, you build 2 different subnets, and you have individual, no bonding, individual connections. So 2 connections to your client, 2 on the server, and SMB will essentially round robin, essentially balance the load across the 2 interfaces. So it's pretty powerful technology.
That's awesome. So it'll like chunk up a file, different, I guess.
Even a single file.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's great too if you have multiple files, but even a single file, it'll be able to give. Excuse me, for a write from the desktop to the actual HL15, easily over 15 gigabits a second with even a single file.
That is awesome because. Yeah, because SMB, it's single threaded, it's kind of slow, but I guess then with this is how you really speed it up then.
Yeah. Now, I do say in the video too, there's quite a bit of magic going on in the background. I did a lot of tuning. Tuning is kind of like my favorite pastime, and getting performance to sing as fast as I can. So I don't give it away because I want people to beat me, and I want to see what people can come up with. Everything that I did was easily searchable on the internet. You can find it. So eventually we'll probably go in a little more detail on some of the things I did. But it's fun stuff.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. Yeah, and my HL15, like I love it too. I totally agree that like if you want to do a ton of VMs, like, yeah, there's probably a better CPU out there, but the board is super solid. Like I love this board. I love everything about the thing. I do, honestly. I'm going to use it for storage only, but still, even 6 cores, no hyper-threading. Yeah, 1.9, single thread performance, totally fine. It has so much cache on the CPU too that it, a lot of it doesn't even matter. But yeah, it's awesome. Like it'll run Proxmox fine. You could run a ton of LXC containers. You could run, I'd say you could even run 6 or 7 VMs just to assign 1 core per VM. Like it's totally fine. It's it'll do it fine. It's like once you start getting, beyond that, or you have workloads that are, pretty demanding on the CPU, that's where it's like, okay, it's time to upgrade. But now you're off in a, you're specializing a specialization, you know what I mean? You're on the edge of an edge case now. Where the gold, I think the gold CPUs, I think this one that motherboard can socket up to, I think one CPU with up to 32 cores.
Something like that. Yep.
That's correct.
Yeah. Something 28 or 32. And they're relatively, I don't want to say cheap, but, inexpensive compared to, what you would normally pay if you find them on eBay. I mean, I was seeing them and I'm like, wow, I was just debating upgrading just because, but I was like, I'm going to use it as is. Like, I'm going to use this thing as is, because I want it to also reflect what the community is going to get if they go this route.
Yep. Especially these days, like the CPU manufacturers, Intel and AMD, have been just like going back and forth since Ryzen ever came out. Now our like even on the desktop, we're dealing with 16 cores as the flagship for desktop, not even high-end desktop. So it's like higher core counts than ever is becoming more and more obtainable by the average person, which is just amazing to see.
Yeah. And they always go back between like more cores or a higher single thread performance, and then Intel tries to do both. It's just this leapfrog every time.
Yeah. So we've been like just flowing. We haven't even had to jump into our well of all these questions we have, because that's a great conversation. But there is one thing I did want to talk about. It's like a segment that we do usually, and it's called War Stories. Essentially, it's just, we want to talk about a time where you had a project or had something that you were working on where you expected it was just going to be, something simple, and then you ended up going down the rabbit hole and further, and then you come out the other side a different man.
Yeah, and it could be anything from your home lab to your working life, something that you would have that you just wouldn't have learned on the internet, through school, through anything. It's with putting your boots on the ground and life.
I know we're putting you on the spot.
I think the most recent things are probably going to bubble to the top, and this one was probably fairly recently, but it was a Kubernetes thing. What was it? So a place where I worked, we're running an older version of Kubernetes. In order for us to do automatic upgrades through the cloud provider, we had to find all of these deprecated APIs, and those deprecated APIs were being called by different services like Elastic and all of these services. And it just turned into this, one, I grabbed the story thinking like, hey, you know what? I'm going to take care of this. This is my jam, Kubernetes. I got this, and it turned into like me and, inspecting and trying to figure out how Elastic works, down to upgrading all of our whole entire Elasticsearch cluster, upgrading Kibana, upgrading APM for all of our tracing and all of our tracing of our APIs. Just to be able to upgrade to the latest version of Kubernetes. So it's things like that. When you start getting into Kubernetes stuff, it just gets, I don't want to say tangled, but you can go pretty deep down the rabbit hole. But yeah, it was like, hey, I want to go to Kubernetes 1.2.5. Hey, no problem. I've done that at home a million times. I got this, and it's, like I said, all of these services we have are calling a deprecated API. Upgrade every service. Okay, fix that. Well, now Elasticsearch is calling a deprecated API. Oh, I got to upgrade all of Elasticsearch, all of our a whole entire Elastic cluster and production and QA and some other monitoring cluster we have. just to get it to stop calling deprecated APIs, just so we can get on Kubernetes 1.25. So
that's a good war story.
Yeah,
you pull one thread and then you're like, wow, yeah.
And the best is
totally
when the
was.
upgrades,
It totally was.
They start changing commands in one upgrade to another, or start changing the API call to something slightly different, and then something just doesn't work anymore. And you're just like pulling threads left and right. That's a great one.
It is. Yeah, luckily I came out on the other side, and we're good now. So, but there was a lot of landmines in there. I was just like, well, if I destroy your Elastic cluster, there's not too much I can do. Everything's down, and we're going to experience downtime, and we're going to have to do a DR recovery on all of our Elastic data. Like, kind of scary. That's the kind of scary thing about upgrading anything in production. If you upgrade it in QA, that, hey, it kind of works. Also, a good reason why your QA should always match, or your lower environment should match production as closely as possible. Yeah. But sometimes there's, sometimes there's no other way but to do it in production. And anytime I'm 100%. Like,
will do
anytime I'm there, especially with Kubernetes, I'm just like, and then our Kafka cluster, like someone else at work was saying, I think Kafka's down. I'm like, what, are you kidding me? Like, please don't be down, because I don't know if you use Kafka, but there is no recovering from Kafka. I mean, if that messaging system gets out of sync, like, there's nothing to do but restore from disk. Like, it's just cascading failures all the way down. So anyways, and that was how my Tuesday went yesterday.
Yeah.
Awesome. That was a good one.
For sure.
There's probably, I guess, more relatable ones. That one's top of mind, but
that's as relatable as it gets.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was, but like, oh man, and that feeling of like, oh, this will be an easy one. We're just doing this. Yeah. And then it's like, oh my goodness. Yeah, no, that's
my story from last week was very similar.
Yeah, same idea.
Like one thing just started cascading everything out, and you're just like going down the hole.
Oh, but that feeling when it's done and it's back up, and you're like, oh, I'm going to bed.
I am a god.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Anytime you have like a ton of dependencies that can cascade, where their failures can cascade, just like, please work.
Yeah.
And if it works, like, I'm not going to touch it. I'm not going to breathe on it.
Yeah.
What I really like that a lot of companies, a lot of dev teams, DevOps have the rules that they do not touch anything on a Friday. They're not going to touch and do any updates, do anything like that on Friday. Nope, not going to happen.
I'm kind of the opposite.
Oh, yeah?
I will redeploy all the production on a Friday night. Yeah, I got bitten. So I'm glad you brought that up, because that comes up a lot, and it like tugs on two parts of me, right? Mm-hmm. Where in infrastructure, I hear people say read only Friday and all of this stuff. As a software developer, I want to get out the fixes now. Like, I don't want to wait. Like, why should our customers have to wait until Monday? Because I might break something. Okay, that's on me. I'll fix it. And so like, I'm always tugged in these two directions. And so, when I work for a large enterprise, like, I don't know, Fortune 50 company here in Minneapolis, it was kind of the same way. We don't touch anything on, Fridays. We don't deploy during Saturdays. We freeze during all of holidays, which starts on October, and we unfreeze code, almost in February. It's like, the heck am I going to do for 3 months? And so there was a lot of that. But then when I started working for the startup, it was like, want to deploy all production on Saturday night? Go for it. Like, we trust you. And so I'm kind of back in that camp. But that you can only do that if you have good tests in place.
Exactly.
If you have, good environments in place, and you trust the person who's doing it, that they're, competent enough to do it, and you have good help around you, and that's what I learned working at a small startup. I knew that if I broke something on a Saturday night and I took all the production down, one, I wouldn't get fired unless I did it a lot, but I doubt it. And two, that I had a team of people who were willing to help. And so with that support, around me, and with that motivation that I had to do something on a Saturday night, I mean, how could anyone say no to that? And so I'm tugged in both directions, because like, if someone has that motivation to do that on their own time, and they want to do it, and it's like they want to be there to support it if something goes wrong, like, you got to harness that. I feel like you have to harness that rather than say, nope, it's read only tonight. And it's kind of like, that's where I get pushed and pulled, because I've been in both scenarios where I'm like, I'm on support tonight. Don't touch anything. You know, I kind of want to have a weekend. You know.
I'm on 24/7.
Well, you nailed it right at the beginning too when you said, "What do you mean I got to wait? I finished all these features. Why do the customers have to wait?"
Yep.
That's the magic right there. Why do we do any of this stuff?
Yep.
We're providing a service, a something. They are to them.
Yep.
Their customers is why we do everything there, and then that's what we've got our rule too. Customers are number one, and sometimes you don't want to, but it comes back to that. Like if you don't want to do it, like you mentioned, I don't want to do it because I don't want to break it and blah blah blah. It's like that sounds like a bunch of you guys problems. Like you get that all fixed out anyway. But I love the way because you opened this whole podcast with that, and you said it again there with such a customer facing. Like you enjoyed helping people, and when you remember that, that's kind of why we do all this stuff. To provide a service to help people to create content and educate them and stuff. That's the stuff that gets you going. So anyway, I love your philosophy on that, Tim. I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, thank you. I don't want to let me like clarify because like people are going to be like, oh man, did you hear what he said? Like now we have to work weekends. No,
no.
As soon as you get like outside of your teams, and as soon as you start doing intra teams type stuff and bringing people up on the weekends, no way. You know, sure. I feel like. No, let people have their work-life balance. I totally agree.
Yep.
But me deploying a fix for, one of our UIs or one of our services on a Friday night, and I know it's the fix and all my tests passed and I tested it in QA, I feel like, hey, I'm just going to deploy this real quick. And that's another thing, like one of our principles at our software engineer, well, the company I kind of work at now, one other thing is it's don't argue about the small stuff. Or don't put a lot of time into making decisions about things that are easy to revert. And so in our environment, I can deploy code all the way to production using our systems and CI systems with our UIs in about 15, 20 minutes. The revert for that is about 30 seconds. Right, so for us, we've always taken this approach where we can get things to production really quick. And if something goes wrong, the backout plan is 30 seconds and you're right back to where you were before because we use CI systems. So you have to have those kind of systems in place though too, where it's like, okay, it does make a huge difference. That's hard with infrastructure. It's easier with code, with front ends and UIs and APIs. Like, hey, this container didn't work, flip back to the old container. It's kind of hard to do with, network switches or servers or patches, and stuff like that. So a little bit different, but at the same time, like I enjoy that stuff. The faster, the better for me.
Yeah, love it.
Awesome. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our hour here. This has been awesome, Tim. It's very insightful. Oh no, look at this man has.
We didn't talk about this, but I had the most fun eating those hot wings with you on the boat or beside the boat. Yeah. I was always the wuss. I went probably about halfway or 6 or 7, and a couple guys on my team would just put the things down like it was nothing. But I felt like I had to represent, so you motivated me enough to like go all the way to the end. Now I'm just addicted to the stuff. So anyway, we had Solheim on here last week, Craft Computing, and to make him feel at home, we had a beer with him.
Yep.
But I wanted to not end on this, but at least get my face on fire. Mitch can do the closing today.
Oh yeah.
But in spirits of remembering our time together, of eating wings, and I'm struggling. Jeff Geerling has a great video of it. I'm pretty sure I'm just swearing in his face. And Tim's just like, pretty good. So to that, I'll say I had a great time, and spice it up.
There we go.
Oh, woo-wee.
Anyway,
it's funny because when we did that...
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, when we did that, I thought you were the pro. Like, I was like, oh, man.
I was selling it.
He's the pro.
I was selling it.
I have to downplay this a little bit. I got to downplay this a little bit. So I was like, no. I wasn't downplaying it, but like, I built this up in my mind, like, this is going to burn my face off. I'm not going to be able to speak for days. And, that's what I do in my head. I think of like worst possible scenario. So then when I tried it, I'm like, yeah, it's really hot. It's burning my tongue off. But like, I'll be able to talk and I'll be fine. But yeah.
You guys did
you
the
were
bomb?
not messing around. You.
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
You guys did the bomb?
Oh, we went all the way.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
All the way.
All
the way. It kind of smelled like kerosene towards the end. Like it didn't even smell like food. It smelled like gasoline and kerosene together.
Oh, never again for me. Thanks so much, Tim. This has been awesome. Really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much.
Yeah, and that brings us
what's
to the end of
spinning.
6. That's what's spinning, and my mouth is on fire.
All right. Well, we'll take mercy on you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Glad to see you again from your neighbor in South Canada here in Minneapolis. Hope you guys are doing well
I like it.
and have happy holidays.
Yeah, you as well.